Well, welcome, Steve. Thanks for joining me.
I'm excited to be here in lovely sunny Chicago with you.
Amazing. Well, let's go ahead and dive in, okay?
Okay, let's do it.
Okay. Well, first off, I'd love for you to explain what the food industry does and how it connects companies with the insights industry.
Okay, so as the Food Industry Association, FMI represents grocery stores and food suppliers all over the United States, pretty much, and really around the world, but mostly in the U.S. And we really try to we call it ACE, which is to advocate, collaborate, and educate the community, the food industry, and all the members of the industry, consumers, and those who are impacted by the industry in general. And we do that. One of the main ways that I do that personally, and my group does that, is through our research and insights. We have a very robust research and insights practice. Last year, we produced over 30 reports that we shared out. Some of those are available for free. Some of those are for members only. But and we really look at things across the industry with our research. Everything from shopper behavior in general to specific shopper behavior to exploring various issues that affect the industry. From I'll use terminology like shrink and asset protection and supply chain and all those types of things. So we really look at it from a kind of 360-degree view as to what's happening and how it affects the broader food industry.
30 studies a year. That's
Yes,
quite
we have
a
some
few.
partners and I have some good teammates that help do all that. So.
Okay. Well, I know that there's been so much change in the industry.
Oh, yes.
So tell me a little bit about what the biggest disconnect that you see the food industry thinks versus what consumers really care about.
I wouldn't call it so much of a disconnect. I mean, a lot of our members and those in the food industry and those that research the food industry, they understand a lot of what the consumer is doing from certain perspectives. We like to take a broader perspective and look at the whole consumer behavior. So as we know from our research, shoppers shop an average of over 5 different stores in a typical 30-day period. So any particular retailer is going to know what they do in that particular store, but they're not necessarily going to know what they do in other stores. And I'll even add to that that we find the younger generations, millennials and Gen Zers, they're just averaging at least 6 different stores. So they're exploring a lot of different stores. On average, people spend about 70% of their expenditure at their primary store, but that still leaves 30% that they're going other places for. Looking for different things. Sometimes it's totally different categories, like they'll only buy their produce at certain stores or their meat. So it's a variety of different behaviors there. So it's not so much the disconnect there. Shoppers generally, we have this shopper sentiment index that we've been measuring for years. Shoppers generally, despite all the craziness over the past 5 years, we've had a pandemic, we've had the search for toilet paper, if everyone remembers that,
yes.
Meat shortages, then we had the whole egg thing earlier this year, we've had food inflation. Shoppers have been going through a lot in terms of understanding, how they approach things. But overall, they still feel like they have a lot of options for this shopping behavior. Again, those 5 different stores, they do a lot of shopping around to meet their various needs. We've been looking at over the past couple of years some of the things specifically what shoppers are looking for, and it's much more than in the olden days where it was simple, price versus quantity. Where can I get the cheapest price? They're looking for quality. They're looking for what we call relevance, which is sometimes it's about sustainability. Sometimes it's about unique flavors. Sometimes it's just about convenience. They want to put a meal on the table for their family. Those prepared foods that a lot of the food stores, food retailers offer, as opposed to having to spend the money to go out, which is a lot more expensive these days. So it's really kind of understanding that broad view of what shoppers are doing that we try to do, as opposed to the more narrow view that maybe some of our members might be taking as in terms of their particular shoppers.
So you understand the different stores that they're going to, and also obviously it sounds like consumers have a lot of different dimensions as it relates to the way that they're.
Oh, absolutely. A couple years ago, with our big U.S. grocery shopper trends research, we talked about what we call the value matrix, and I jokingly had the slide that I would use. And it used to be just a simple, like I said, price versus quantity. Now that's like a complex regression model. I can't even say that people have to figure out, and different people have different desires and needs. Sometimes it is they want just the cheapest product. Sometimes, they want something with those certain flavors or that certain taste. I talk to a lot of shoppers who do a lot of qualitative research too, and literally, as I like to say, peel back the layers of the onion. I know that's a food analogy, but to understand what's behind the data in terms of why people do what they do. And a lot of them have a variety of different reasons. I had one shopper last year I was talking to. She was very focused on convenience, and and she didn't really care so much about the price. Her big thing was, I'm never going to cut an onion. I'm happy to let the store chop up my onion and buy chopped onions myself because I don't want to cry. That was her thing. Other people are looking for simply that cheapest price or certain flavors. So everyone kind of has their own unique thing that they're looking for, and they have a unique mix of stores to get to what they're looking for.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
And it's so, we're all consumers,
shoppers come in all
right?
different flavors, yes.
Yeah.
We say our members come in 31 different flavors, Baskin-Robbins analogy, but definitely shoppers come in at least that many different flavors.
I love that. And I mean,
yeah.
it keeps you, I'm sure, busy on your toes, and it's
Yes.
not a static category, lots of
No.
complexities.
And the best thing is in terms of doing the research in this industry is the fact that people love to talk about food.
Sure.
You don't have to convince them. Early in my career, I did a lot of work in banking and insurance. It's like, I don't want to talk about my bank. I don't want to talk about health insurance. But when it comes to food, everybody pretty much likes to talk about food.
That's really cool.
They have their interests, definitely.
That's a fun research application for
Yes.
sure. I guess onto a more serious topic that we all are experiencing right now. You all track consumer reaction to economic pressures and things like tariffs and food prices changing, and you alluded to this earlier.
Yes.
What surprises you the most about how resilient shoppers actually are as it relates to those things?
Yeah, so I'm going to go back a few years. Before the pandemic, I've been at FMI now for 8 years. First 4 years, we would do our annual U.S. Grocery Shoppers Trend Survey once a year. Things didn't change that much. Then the pandemic came. I always joke that first year of the pandemic, we did our trend survey 10 times.
Wow.
Things were just changing constantly. I've joked with my colleagues, I never did an overnighter in college, but I did an overnighter the first week of the pandemic to get our first new tracker up there because everybody wanted to know how are shoppers reacting, what's really happening. We were all stuck in our homes trying to figure it all out. In the last 5 years, that's continued with, we've had to deal with inflation, questioning how shoppers are dealing with food inflation. Everything from we had the egg flu, the bird flu issue earlier with egg prices. So we now, this year, and now we have all the tariffs and everything that everyone's trying to figure out. This year, we've literally been doing monthly snapshots of consumer behavior.
Oh, wow.
So we've really been trying to understand that and really trying to understand there's a lot of angst and anxiety on the consumer's behalf right now. There's a lot that they're trying to figure out, a lot that they're dealing with. We certainly have the question of tariffs, how that will impact things. Inflation has been an issue. It's not so much in food anymore, but people still are feeling it. So there's a lot of stuff going on there. The whole MAHA movement has a lot of folks trying to figure out what is healthy anymore. People say they try and eat healthy. Now they're trying to figure that out. And then most recently with the jobs reports that we've been hearing, there's a lot of stress and angst on behalf of the consumers. The one thing that they do tell us, though, with all this going on, and they do modify their shopping behaviors, whether, as I brought up earlier, like private brands and being more efficient with their food dollars. But the one thing that we keep asking them, do you feel like you have control of your grocery budget, your grocery expenditures? And a lot of them do feel like they do because they have so many options in this industry to shop different places.
Oh,
so
that's
it makes it very interesting that they do feel like they have some control in that regard.
That's probably a huge stress reliever in some ways as well,
Right.
because when you lack control, that can be difficult to navigate.
Yes, yeah.
So,
but I mean, people, they're rightfully concerned about food prices. As we talk about food prices, when you pay your rent every month or your mortgage, at least mine is, it's automatically pulled out. It's the same amount each month. Nothing changes. I can't change it. Maybe interest rates will go down and we can change it in the future. But food prices, there's a lot of variation. You typically go to the grocery store on average. A household goes at least 2.5 times a week. So you're dealing with that on a constant basis. So food prices are very top of mind with people, but they also feel like they have some control over it. So it's kind of a little juxtaposition there in terms of how they deal with that.
that's interesting because I think we always kind of think we tend not to think about the options that I guess people do have, but are very focused on the.
Yeah, and we talk about a lot of there's other countries around the world. If you go over to example like in England or over to Australia, there's basically two food grocery store options that you have in those places. Here we do have yes, some of them are larger. You got your Walmarts and stuff like that, but there are lots, especially here in Chicago. Every corner has a unique grocery store not every corner, but there's a lot of different options out there and a lot of different approaches to food. So.
That's a great point. I'd love to kind of understand from your perspective how working for an association is maybe different than working from a brand, especially when we think about consumer insights and what differences might exist there.
Yeah, it is a different world. I was on the supplier side before. I've never actually worked on the brand side, but yet we have a research and insights committee which is made up of various researchers in the brand world. So I get to hear a lot from them, some of their struggles and focuses and how they approach things. But as an association, we like to say we play Switzerland. We have to be neutral. We're not going to favor any different type of food or different type of food retailer or any type of way there. But it also gives us a unique position. For example, when we do our industry surveys, people want to give us the data so that they can benchmark themselves against the industry so that they can know how the industry is doing overall. And we're also able to kind of take a higher level view of consumer behavior in terms of looking at things. We're not looking for particular niches or particular areas. We take a very broad view of things. So that makes things much more interesting. I also have to deal with appeasing I'm sure within brands there's a lot of different audiences you have to appease, but I have to appease a lot of different folks. Our members want the information that they want. The industry, certainly needs to be represented properly. With a lot of stuff that's happening in Washington right now, we use a lot of our data to help educate and make people aware of how things are impacting the industry, everything from the changes to SNAP benefits to the changes to food safety requirements. There's a lot of different aspects of what we cover. So it makes it fun every day.
I'm sure.
And it's interesting within our organization that, a lot of people come to us, can we do a project? So we have to, sometimes kind of control our resources and pick and choose what we focus on.
Of course, and I'm sure you're always thinking about the consumer and best representing them.
Yes. I mean, we really want to, as we talk about making sure that the food supply is safe, secure, and healthy for everybody. Those are things that we really want to make sure that on all sides of the dimensions that go into that.
We've covered a lot of topics, but what might we be missing about today's shopper?
Well, I think we learned a lot this year with our big trend survey that we released in February, where we try to understand a little bit more about what people shoppers, consumers in general, were willing to spend a little bit more for when it comes to their food budget. They're always certainly trying to keep it as low as possible and trying to be as efficient as possible. But there are 4 areas that we definitely learned that consumers are really willing to invest in, and health is one of those, eating healthier foods. They look at that as both an investment in themselves, an investment in their families, and support for their continued healthiness in terms of how they approach things. The other thing is entertainment. A lot of people are not eating out as much. Food and the dinner time experience, or even lunches or whatever right now, it is about entertainment. Food is entertaining. So that food budget, whether it's for barbecues, football, we just had the football game here last night, Monday Night Football, whatever the case might be. So that is a key part of it. The other thing that I find shoppers really very much wanting to do is exploration. I talked earlier about how many different banners they shop. A lot of that is to explore different flavors, different things maybe they can only buy at certain stores, or just what's new. They love to see those end caps on the stores and what's the latest flavor of this, or what's the newest type of that, or the newest recipe. So that is definitely a thing. And then of course, some folks love to cook, and we find that people are cooking at home more. I think they're actually preparing foods at home more, not necessarily cooking at home the way we think about it traditionally. So convenience is very much a factor.
Okay.
What we can be doing as an industry to make it more convenient and easier for mom to put I shouldn't say mom or dad to put the dinner on the table, because I was the one a lot of times doing it in my house.
Yes.
But for the family to be fed and fed in a way that meets everyone's needs.
So prepared ingredients, things that are straightforward
or even just
and easy.
meal planning or menus, or just in the store putting things together. These are the things you need to make chili tonight. Instead of or the bag salads are a great example.
Right.
It's like I'll make the main dish, but if I could just throw the salad together, I don't have to chop up all the vegetables like the woman I talked about earlier with the onions. Yes.
Right.
So there's a lot of things we can do to help people, and also just to give them new ideas. People do want, we talk about Taco Tuesday and Meatless Mondays and Pizza Friday and all that other stuff, but people do like to put a little variety in their meals. And some kids, as my kids were, not so adhering to that, but it definitely is something people want to try and do and have those different flavors and experiences.
That's cool. We mentioned flavors a lot. Is there any particular flavor that is surprising to you that people have mentioned? Are they more seasonal or?
One of the things I hear a lot of spicier foods these days
Yeah,
are very
sure.
much in, and it's different spices. There's all these different spices that I've been learning about that it's interesting. So people want that a little extra kick, I guess, in their food. Yeah,
Sure.
that's one of the things.
Show hot ones where they've got
Yes.
the wing sauces on,
Yep.
all that stuff.
Absolutely,
So, yeah.
absolutely.
Cool. Well, it was a pleasure talking to you. Thanks
nice
so
talking
much
to
for
you.
diving
Yes.
in and getting to talk to us today. We really appreciate it.
And I enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right.